the Clippers are on my mind. I wrote a piece today with Josh Robbins and Mike Borkenoff. Check that out on our site, trying to highlight just some of the early season action, which teams have impressed, which teams have not. So when the question was posed to me, which teams have underperformed and do you think they will turn it around? I was, none too thrilled to get into the Clippers situation. And I only say thrilled because I always love these high profile situations when it's like, how many times do we need to learn that, this is not just a game of throw as much talent into the same pot as you possibly can and assume that it is going to work. James Harden wanted nothing more than to get to the Clippers, where you look on paper and they've got 4 future Hall of Famers in Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and then the Beard. They're 0-5. So I waited until, 5 is a good little chunk of time where I'm very comfortable saying, let's unpack this a little bit, because one game, all right, it was in the Garden. They played the Knicks. James hadn't been on the court. Fine. 2 games, pulling up where they went next.
Brooklyn.
You're then losing at Brooklyn. You're losing at Dallas, giving up 144. Defensively, a disaster in that game. 105-101 to Memphis. Then you lose to the champs and actually play pretty well against the Nuggets. But they're 0-5. To give the data real quick, during that span, league-wide, they're 27th in offense, 25th in defense, 29th in net rating. Harden is coming in at 15 points a game. His shooting splits are fine. 4.2 assists.
He doesn't look
well, he doesn't look good. And the assist part and the playmaking part is where it's just apples and oranges from his Philly life. And I don't really feel like going too far down the Harden road, but it is wild. It's like, man, like in Philly, he's seemingly resentful over the fact that he was willing to play the let's augment Joel Embiid and all of his superpowers like he did last year in Philly. James did a wonderful job of that, led the league in assists, and still scored the ball at a 20-point per game clip. I don't know. Basketball wise, that feels more fun than this.
Didn't make the All-Star team though, right? Wasn't that an issue?
Well, he's not about to make it this year.
No, I know, but I mean, I feel like, wasn't there a sense from him that he didn't get like publicly
No, there was,
rewarded?
but then the whole grass is always greener thing. Like, how is this better? It's only 5 games, but how the hell is this better? You're in your hometown.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, he's at the stage of his career where, like, yeah, it's just he's not gonna get back to what he was in Houston, and he's kind of chasing that. That happens a lot of times, with players, of his ilk, his age. But let's see him get in shape first. He's clearly not in quite yet in basketball rhythm and shape. Their team is, and I actually thought they played pretty good against the Nuggets. I mean, obviously 0-5 is a bad number. I don't know if these pieces seem like they might not fit. Ty Lue did not close with Westbrook the other night. He went with kind of a better fitting lineup. But Harden doesn't look that good to me. Like, he might be able to play at that Philly level if he gets back to that Philly rhythm. He just doesn't have it.
Right. I actually don't really doubt that he can play at that Philly level. He's just on the wrong team to do it. It's the whole one ball thing. That's where Ty Lue, it's wild to say because he's a guy with incredible respect around the league. He's a championship coach. I was at the game the other day, and this is, to be clear, just coming from the scouting community, but people within the league are suddenly, chatting a little bit about Ty, like, man, there's some pressure on him over there. Steve Ballmer doesn't mess around. And you got a new arena coming for the Clippers this summer. I mean, it's a pretty unique landscape in terms of the pressure component, because the marketing business side, where they would love nothing more than to have a successful year that they could then sell to the fan base going into the new arena, it potentially is headed in the polar opposite direction, which is, we don't know what the hell we're going to do with our roster. We got a bunch of aging stars that didn't get the job done, and I'm getting ahead of myself here. But those 2 scenarios are still in play, and I think everybody in that Clippers building should be feeling a little bit tight right now.
Yeah, I know. I think James said after the Denver game, hey, once this gets clicked in, we're going to be great. Like, he's expressing a lot of confidence, and it is still very early in the season. And so, and he just got there. So you can say that, yeah, this may just give them some time. They will figure things out, and it could be really good. But the problem is that you're giving a benefit of the doubt to a team and a group of players that frankly does not really deserve it, from Harden's standpoint, but also from the Clippers standpoint in general. I mean, what in the last 3 years has told us that this is a group that really wants to even play basketball, that cares about it, that wants to do the hard work that it's going to take to be viable in the Western Conference with all of this parity. I mean, if anything defines this group other than, games missed for injury, it's a lack of want to. It feels like to me, just watching them, like, dude, these guys, they just expected that everything was going to be handed to them and work out great because I'm Kawhi Leonard, I'm Paul George, I'm this, I'm that, I'm James Harden. And I think they're at their stage of their careers where that's not going to be just falling into their laps. And I want to see if they're willing to do the dirty work that it's going to take to figure that out. I just don't know that this group is capable of that.
I think their era was built around the idea that Kawhi Leonard might be the best player in basketball, right? I mean, they got him after he led the Raptors to a title, was the Finals MVP, and you know how it works. When you do win the Finals MVP, like that summer, you are believed to basically be the best player in basketball.
Yes,
that's when they signed him. That feels like ages ago. And to be honest, there are 5-game stretches randomly over the last few years where you're like, there he is. Mm-hmm. But I just don't, we could blame, the want to or the construction of the roster. I just don't think his body is holding up. And if he is not a top 5 player, they are not a title contender. And will he ever get back to that? I don't know.
Not to, I shouldn't say not to, I guess, to pour a little salt in the wound that you kind of opened up there, John, as far as just the question of want to, which is, I think, somewhat fair. I think there's some nuance there. Lou Williams was on the Paul George podcast recently. I think this is where that was from, but he was talking about the old bubble experience, which admittedly for me, in terms of my opinion of this Clippers group, it's pretty tough to get those memories out of my head where I was, in the gym when Paul George was hitting threes off the side of the backboard late when they were blowing a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets, and just seeing a level of basketball that was, about as low as you can get on that level. In terms of their mindset at the time, and maybe even at times since, Lou says, we didn't even want to go to the bubble. Mentally, we came into it without the right mindset to finish the job. We didn't even want to be there. And I think once we got there, we were in it. There was some talk about how they didn't think a bubble title would be respected, and that might have impacted motivation. So this is where I've always been very sympathetic to Ty Lue, because that's not how Ty is cut. And he's been trying last year, a couple of years now, to, I think, change the culture. I think he's had some progress. I don't think they're the same team identity-wise that they were before. I think that's why they go get a Westbrook, which, say what you will about Russ competes. He's going to play ball. He loves the game, so we'll see where they go